If you are driven, ambitious, and, you're getting ready for that next big thing, a promotion, a project, a platform, let me ask you a question.
hmm
What is the single most essential thing you need for long-term sustainable success?
And if your first thought is something like a great resume or getting noticed or scaling up really
And
fast,
this deep dive is definitely for you because you might just be optimizing for the wrong thing entirely.
today we're really going to challenge that modern assumption. We're diving deep into what makes influence last, and we're pulling everything from Chris Arvelas's book, Prepared in Secret Before the Platform.
And this source, it's not just about faith. I mean, it's really this counterintuitive blueprint for anyone who wants to build leadership on, solid rock, not just sand.
Yeah, the core thesis is so challenging. It argues that authentic, lasting authority, well, it's never earned through being visible or having an impressive resume or even just pure ambition.
Instead, it's forged in hidden faithfulness, in the deep interior work you do when absolutely no one is watching.
That's it. So our mission today is to unpack why Velasquez argues that obscurity, those hidden years, aren't a delay. He says it's God's primary training ground.
And we want to explore what that really means for building character that can actually handle the pressure of public life, whether you're in business, a nonprofit, or anywhere else.
Okay, so let's start with a problem the book identifies. Phase 1, the crisis of the unformed leader.
Right. The book points to this huge cultural issue, especially in performance-driven fields. He calls it the crisis of the unformed leader.
And this is the core issue for so many ambitious people. Yeah. It comes directly from our culture's obsession with speed, with performance, with, immediate results.
And in that kind of environment, what happens?
Well, what inevitably happens is that your giftedness, your talent, your skills, it starts to outpace your character.
Oh, you see this everywhere. You see someone who is just brilliant, technically amazing, but their foundation it's just not stable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can produce results, but they can't sustain integrity. And that instability is the silent killer.
It leads to burnout, or worse.
Right. Moral collapse, self-destruction. The book really highlights this widening gap between a leader's public platform, their brand, their image, and their private spiritual or, psychological health.
We just prioritize technical skill, don't we?
We do. We reward the person who can close the deal, not always the one with the most integrity behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And the source warns that technical skill without that spiritual union. It's just misdirected preparation,
You're preparing for the stage.
but not for the weight the stage demands.
So if the focus can't be on the doing, what's the fundamental shift we need to make? Where do we direct our preparation?
It's a complete shift in perspective. You have to move from a culture of doing to a culture focused on becoming.
Becoming.
Velasquez argues that the divine's main concern isn't what a servant can accomplish, but who that servant is becoming before him. So readiness it's all about that interior formation. It's
Yeah.
becoming before you even try the doing.
That is such a radical reordering for anyone who is success-driven. It means before I launch that project, I have to look inward first.
Exactly. The key principle is identity before impact. Leadership has to start with a secure identity. The book calls it sonship, but we can think of it as just an unconditional sense of self-worth that's totally separate from your performance.
And if you skip that part,
Your leadership is fragile. You're just constantly trying to earn approval through performance, and that's completely unsustainable.
okay, so if the crisis is that giftedness outpaces character, the next question has to be, where is this character actually built? Which brings us to phase 2, the spiritual crucible of obscurity.
If formation is first, where does it happen?
Yeah, practically speaking.
It happens in the places nobody sees. Velasquez is so clear on this. Those hidden years, those seasons where you feel totally stuck or ingrimmable, that is not wasted time.
That's a huge pillar of his argument, isn't it?
It's everything. Obscurity is not the waiting room. It is God's chosen instrument for shaping trustworthy servants.
But that goes against everything hustle culture teaches. If you're not visible, you're not moving forward. If I'm 35 and feel stuck, the world tells me I'm failing.
And the book says the opposite. It says you're in the classroom. The central example is Jesus' 30 years in Nazareth. I mean, just think about that from a productivity perspective.
30 years of quiet work. A carpenter.
Before just 3 years of public ministry, those 30 years weren't a delay. They were the essential foundation. That was the classroom.
That's really confronting. It runs completely counter to the 5-year plan for getting to the C-suite. So what is actually happening during those, boring, obscure years?
They have this vital, purifying purpose. Obscurity is called the spiritual crucible. It's the place where all the superficial motives, impatience, the need for validation, and especially the urge for self-promotion, where they all die.
So the ego that could destroy the work later on gets starved of oxygen. It's an investment in resilience.
Precisely. There's a quote that just sums it all up. Great authority is born where self-promotion dies. And this whole formation process, it's not always dramatic. It happens through what the book calls ordinary obedience.
Ordinary obedience.
Yeah, God uses the mundane, the daily routines, the quiet work, the tasks no one sees, to train leaders in the habits of faithfulness that will sustain them later under that intense public pressure.
So the small acts of integrity right now, like filing an expense report honestly, or the way you treat a subordinate when no one's around, that's the real curriculum for future leadership.
It is. It's the difference between building a house by just, focusing on the pretty facade versus spending years pouring a concrete foundation that can withstand an earthquake.
That distinction is so critical. Okay, let's move to phase 3, which is all about the outcome of that hitting work, authority and alignment. The book really challenges how we think about authority.
It completely redefines it. True spiritual authority, he says, it can't be seized. It can't be claimed through a job title or a degree or how much money you make.
If you try to grab it, you just end up with this brittle, insecure kind of control.
Right. Not true authority.
So if it can't be seized, where does it come from?
It's entrusted. It's given to those who walk in what the book calls obedient dependence and direct alignment with a purpose greater than themselves. And here's the paradox that runs counter to every corporate ladder.
Which is?
True authority increases as personal independence decreases.
Wow. Okay, that is a total reversal of the modern success story. You're saying the more you depend on a higher purpose, the more authoritative you become, not by asserting your own power.
Absolutely. When your authority flows from that kind of alignment, it just has a weight that credentials can't provide. And we see a powerful example of this in the Apostle Paul.
Right, the book talks about his 3-year silent period in Arabia. This guy was arguably the most credentialed person of his time, a Pharisee, brilliant, competent.
By today's metrics, he should have been on a global speaking tour immediately. He had the perfect resume for impact. But instead, he was intentionally taken off the platform to make sure that his competence flowed from his new relationship, his new alignment, and not from his old titles or his mastery of the old system. It was a total reordering of his preparation.
Which brings us to metrics. If alignment is the goal, how does that change how we measure success? What's the difference between these kingdom metrics and the modern metrics we all use?
Well, the contrast is stark. Modern models are all about effectiveness, scale, efficiency, visible output. How many sales, how many followers, how much profit. The book says the foundational metrics are different. They value faithfulness in small, unseen things over any of that. It's the consistency of character that counts.
So how do I apply that? If I'm a CEO, my board measures effectiveness. How do I shift to faithfulness?
By understanding this one guiding principle, faithfulness, not effectiveness, is the currency of the kingdom. Effectiveness often measures what you can do. Faithfulness measures your devotion to the process, to your character.
So a small project that's faithful to its mission is actually better than a massive one that cuts corners to scale up?
That's the truth bomb. The work of that quiet, unseen person acting with integrity might hold more real authority than the person on the main stage.
And that brings us to phase 4, sustaining the work. Because even if you get through the crucible, you still have to handle the weight of the platform.
Right. And there's this big question of timing. Why does the divine often move so much slower than our own ambition?
That question plagues everyone who feels ready for more. We see an open door and we just want to sprint through it.
But the source introduces this idea of the danger of spiritual speed. Ambition wants to rise fast, but the book says that delay is often mercy.
Delay is mercy.
God moves slower to protect the servant, to make sure their character is really refined before they get elevated. It's like a safety feature, protecting you from a weight you aren't truly ready to bear.
That's a beautiful way to frame those frustrating delays as protective mercy, which means we have to reject what the book calls the arrival mentality.
Oh, absolutely. Readiness isn't a phase you just finish and check off. It is a lifelong discipline of remaining formable.
Yeah, Velasquez warns that the single most dangerous moment for any leader is when they think they're finished being formed. They think they know enough, have learned enough.
That's the moment the foundation starts to crack. There's that quote that just captures it perfectly.
It's so good.
The day you think you've arrived is the precise moment when spiritual drift begins.
And part of that lifelong formation is also about suffering, right? The book reframes it as a seminary of experience.
It's vital because it builds the two things that technical mastery never can: empathy and resilience. When a leader has actually failed, when they've suffered, they lead differently. They get it.
They can handle crises without collapsing, and they can connect with the people they lead.
Exactly. They learn a kind of humility that success can never, ever teach them.
Okay, so we have this profound framework, but what about Monday morning? For the person listening, what are the practical tools for self-assessment?
The book suggests a couple of really powerful audits. The first we can call the giftedness versus character audit.
I like that. How does that work?
It's a regular exercise. You take a piece of paper, and on one side, you list your skills, your talents, your accomplishments, your giftedness. On the other side, you list your character qualities: patience, integrity, humility.
And the goal is to see the gaps.
Exactly. To honestly see where your professional giftedness might be aggressively outpacing your internal maturity, it's basically checking if your engine is too big for your chassis.
And that tells you if you're setting yourself up for a crash, what's the second framework?
Establishing a rule of life. Now that sounds formal, but it's really just a simple framework for ordering your daily rhythms around what actually nurtures your soul.
Instead of just letting your job dictate your entire schedule.
Right. It means you schedule time for prayer, for rest, for reflection, and you treat those appointments with the same seriousness as a board meeting.
It's an act of self-leadership to fight that spiritual drift we were talking about.
You're constantly reinforcing that inner foundation.
So what does this all mean for you, for the ambitious person listening? We've seen that real lasting influence. It all hinges on this strong, private foundation of character that's built patiently in hiddenness.
This deep dive into prepared in secret just shows us that the path to true authority is completely counterintuitive to everything the modern world screams at us.
It's not about the hustle for credentials. It's about asking the only question that really matters for the long haul.
Who are you becoming when no one is watching? The quiet, foundational work you do in secret is the only thing that can sustain the visible work you do in public.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought, something to really chew on that takes the long view of influence.
Velsis reminds us the goal isn't a quick rise, it's lasting impact. And he says, a ministry that finishes well is more powerful than one that rises quickly.
So consider this today. What's one small, unseen act of faithfulness, that quiet, disciplined habit that you can commit to this week to build the hidden character you need to finish your own race well?